For the next problem, we need to graph the next trigonometric function, 3 cosine of x. First, we need to find the amplitude and period. First, the amplitude equals the absolute value of a. And the period, just follow the formula. Pi divided by b. So for this example, b equals 1. Which means period is 2 pi. This is a typical cosine graph. What to do? We need to divide the period into 4 equal parts. For that, we need to find the value of 5 points on the graph between 0 and 2 pi. What to do? First, you need to find the values of x. The first is always 0. The last is the value of the period equal to 2 pi. And for this, the typical cosine graph, you have to count by halves of pi. And then after 0, the first point, or the first value of x, is 1/2 of pi. The second is 2/2 of pi. And then you use the pi only. The next is 3/2 of pi. And the last is 4/2 equals 2 pi. Now find the typical cosine values for these values of x. The typical values you have to memorize. Cosine starts with 1. The next value is 0. The next is -1. The next is 0 again. And the last is 1. You can check these values using a calculator, but it is not necessary. You must memorize the values of x counting by halves and the pattern that cosine follows. Cosine starts with 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. That is the pattern for cosine. Now, after this, you have to find the function multiplied by 3. What to do? Multiply by 3 each of the previous values. Three times 1 equals 3. 3 times 0 equals 0. 3 times -1 equals -3. 3 times 0 equals 0. And the last, 3 times 1 equals 3. Now make the points. Use the first and the last value. And graph all the points. The first says 0, 3. The next, pi over 2, comma 0. You see pi and then find pi over 2. And the value is 0. The next, pi, comma, negative 3. The next, 3 halves of pi, comma, 0. And the last, 2 pi, comma, 3. Connect all the points. And that's the graph of 3 cosine of x. Remember, it's important. First, you must know the values of x, counting by halves of pi. Second, do not memorize your cosine values. And after, you have to multiply by a. That's the way to graph these trigonometric functions.